Underdog Collectibles is an online shop run for collectors by collectors. Join them every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday night as they break new products, talk sports, and hopefully you'll pull a great hit to add to your collection. Visit them at www.udogcollect.com and tell them WaxPackHero sent you. Remember, always bet on the underdog. You're listening to the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute, a podcast where we discuss both the hobby and business sides of collecting. I'm your host, Mike Sommer, and I want to help you buy, sell, and trade your way into a collection you'll love. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute. I am an avid listener of Dr. Beckett's podcast, and over the last few months, there's been several topics that I felt needed a little more clarification, or I had some questions about. He piqued my interest, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper. And since he kind of limits his shows to about 15 minutes, sometimes I feel like there was room for further exploration of the topic. And so I had sent him a note, and we decided to get together for a conversation just to explore a few more of those topics in a little more depth. So earlier this week, we got together for about an hour and talked through several different questions, and I believe we're both going to split that conversation up into multiple parts and both use it for our individual podcasts. And so here today, I've got the first section of those conversations or of those questions, and it's going to hit on some topics that are a little bit more hobby financial related. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and run that interview right after I talk about StarStock, one of my new favorite trading card platforms. You know, I'm a big fan of COMC as well, but StarStock is currently processing submissions way faster than COMC is, and that is something that's important to me right now. And so I'm continuing to build another submission to go into StarStock. If you've got rookie and prospect cards from the three major sports of baseball, basketball, and football, I would recommend checking out starstock.com because I think you will find that with their low fees and no processing fee, that they might be a path that you want to explore if you're in the market to sell some cards. All right, now let's run the interview with Dr. Beckett. There's a few of the topics that have come up over some of the episodes I thought maybe warranted a little deeper conversation. Not so much that I disagree or have different thoughts, but things that I thought maybe it would be good to expand on just a little bit. And, you know, the first couple are maybe a little more financial related when it comes to financial topics in the hobby. And recently you talked and touched on cash flow positive and whether or not we need to be cash flow positive when it comes to our collecting or our buying and selling. And it seemed like the general thought was maybe not. And it kind of depended on the time frame. And I wanted to touch just a little bit more on that. And I think what you said makes a lot of sense. And I would suggest people go back and look at that. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on is, would you ever suggest someone use debt as a part of extending that time frame to get to break even or to get to cash flow positive?
Well, you got to be really careful on this because people can listen and take things out of context. You've done an excellent job of summarizing, but the cash flow positive is, in the time frame is, you know, if your family says, hey, or your financial situation is you've got $100 a month to spend on your hobby. By cash flow positive, I'm not saying that you have to make. You could spend that $100 and put it away, and that's not that. To me, that's cash flow neutral, above and beyond what you've already allocated. So you're saying, okay, you've done that for this 1 month. You've spent your $100 that is in the budget, family budget, and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, a collection pops up, and the collection is worth $1,000. Well, if the collection is you're going to buy it for $100, you know, do that. But you know, you wouldn't go into debt to buy $1,000 collection for $900 or $800 or $700, even $500. I would not be interested in doubling, even to me is not good enough to borrow money to put it on my credit card, because credit card interest comes fast. So, but I believe that there are deals out there, not so much brand new stuff, but pig in a poke kinds of things, which I think you have seen, that if there's a collection that is a really good deal and you've checked it out and you're buying for 10 cents on the dollar, and you have the ability, because you've also mentioned the time value, you have the ability to get that $100 back. If you spent $100 for $1,000 collection and that was borrowed money, you ought to be able to see that you could get that paid off within a month. If you can't, well, now you got long-term debt in the hobby. I don't like that. I don't like that. So I'm not sure that answers your question, other than being prudent. Again, if you're a collector and you're not planning to sell stuff, then you problem. You have to sell. I mean, not everybody has to sell, but in a cash flow, if you're a cash flow neutral or positive collector more than an investor, then you need to see your way out of the debt in a sure thing kind of a way. In other words, you're easily collateralized by what you purchased, even in the event of a downturn.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. The thing that concerns me is sometimes I run into other collectors who rationalize something as too good of a deal to pass up, and so they're going to go into debt to do it, when it's not necessarily a sure thing that they're going to be able to get that money back and pay off that debt. And to me, that's a different level of risk and a different level of financial commitment than using savings or cash to be able to purchase some of those types of things. So
and unfortunately, people that are going to get most in trouble with this are the most passionate ones, the people that you and I really enjoy because they love the hobby. And if they're buying something that's a grail card, that's in the PC, their personal collection, that they're a super collector, and they see a one of one, it's do or die. Unfortunately, it's die. Sometimes and they may be overpaying, and so to borrow money to overpay, you're on dangerous, you're on potential ground of addictive behavior.
Yep.
$1,000 is different from 10,000, is different from 100,000. And as you pointed out in your comments to me about the Millionaire next door, if you're a millionaire, then spending $1,000 on cards is not a big deal. If you're a billionaire, spending $1 million is not a big deal, as we've found out.
Right.
But if you're a thousandaire, if you're not the millionaire next door, and you need to be careful. And what you've pointed out, and the books point out, that many times millionaires are slow and steady.
Yep.
And make prudent decisions that accumulate over a lifetime that generate a net worth of $1 million, which is wonderful.
Yeah, that's one of the other things that I thought we could touch on, is you had touched on or alluded to some of the common traits of millionaires that were in that book, A Millionaire Next Door, and or maybe questioning a little bit if that's still the case today, when we see some people flaunting some things, and flaunting whether it's personal items or cards even. And I was just, wanted to touch a little bit too on I think there are a lot of those characteristics that still maintain their truth today, as far as that slow and steady approach, people living below their means, avoiding debt whenever possible, and some of those types of things. I was just curious if you had done much additional reading or conversation about some of those other characteristics of people who might be well-to-do or might be millionaires, and see if there are things that apply to the hobby that are similar characteristics in the things that you've experienced.
Well, I have experienced that, and I did read the book, and I read a lot of books, and I try to track what's going on. And I think that you sent me some excellent materials, but they were, if you define a a millionaire is someone that has a net worth of $1 million, then that includes some number of people in America and is an aspirational goal for many people. For many people, though, that is accomplished by appreciation in their homestead, in their home. And so, to me, the book, the materials you were sending in the Millionaire Next Door, is kind of about people that have $1 million net worth.
Yep.
But there's other definitions of millionaire, like a liquid millionaire, someone that has $1 million that they can get their hands on, that they can invest. They have a stock portfolio. That's a different kind of millionaire, and I think those are the ones that are flaunting it a little bit more. And then there's also people that make $1 million a year, and millionaire earners, and whether it's from investment income, and so they have money to play with, money to give away, money to blow. And so it depends on your situation. My comments that you picked up on, and I'm glad you're asking for clarification, are that they're millionaire wannabes. Mm-hmm. It's millionaire, in some cases, apparently it must work, that if you fake it till you make it, if you act like a millionaire, that's, I don't get that, but perhaps that works some of the time. Not recommended, but there's this conspicuous consumption, sometimes in the hobby, by acting like you're a player, then people then perhaps go to you and think, well, this guy's a player. I've got this big card, and maybe that works. In a rising market, that's the problem, Mike. In a rising market, we can all look really smart because everything's gone up in the last 6 months.
Touching on that rising market idea, you've mentioned several times about the idea of the industry being a balloon, and that we ideally would like to see some air let out of the balloon versus the balloon popping. And I was curious to know a little bit more about what would that look like to you? What would it look like for some of the air to be let out of the balloon?
The best way I could say that is if tomorrow, and I don't want to speak this into being, but cards went up 10% last month. Let's just say, if next month they went down 10%, what would that mean? Well, that could actually be air let balloon, because depending on what cards are offered for sale at 10% less than they were last month, there are collectors out there that are not even millionaire collectors, but collectors who are ready to pounce if something they want is down 10%. The problem that's to me letting air out of the balloon. If the next month cards go down another 10%, there are still collectors out there ready to pounce, not on everything, but on the things that they want. The problem with the balloon popping is if you have a big decline and things become unsaleable. That's the problem. But if it's sitting in your collection, if you put it out there on eBay or some other place to sell it, and it gets either no bids or bids way below a reasonable reserve in your mind, that will freak people out. There's cards that have gone up 100% in the last 6 months. If they went down 50%, which is, can't go down 100%, but they go down 50% to go back to where they were, the stock market does that all the time, and people don't freak out because it can't be just supply and demand. There has to be demand at that price. And if the price goes down a little bit, again, some of these cards, people are ready to pounce right now if cards go down. To me, that's letting air out the balloon. If all the cards come up for sale at the same time, then there's not 23 people out there that want to spend $1.8 million on a LeBron James card, no matter how nice it is, that are all going to want their own copy of that number 23 card if they all came out at the same time. Would that crash the hobby or make that card be a lot more reasonable? My guess, we can't say. Maybe, it's not like a Honus Wagner, but even the Honus Wagner is not safe if the economy got bad. So like I say, there are no sure things.
Part of where I was wondering with that letting the air out of the balloon even comes from that level of demand. We've seen a lot of new entrants come into the hobby over the last couple of years. Some people returning who collected as kids. And so I think some of that increased price is a result of the increased demand that we've seen. And I was wondering if part of the fear that some people have is that some of these new people who are into collecting now are going to have a mass exodus and lose interest really fast too. And I was just, part of that conversation about letting air out of the balloon, part of it for me was also, is that a slow removal of certain people who have entered the hobby or not?
The problem is there, if when prices go up, in classic economic theory, when prices go up, demand is supposed to go down. But it doesn't in this hobby. When prices go up, demand also goes up because it's the latest thing. Now, when prices go down, also demand goes down for those people you're talking about who are going to bail.
Yep.
But they weren't really both feet in the hobby. They were only to their latest thing. And I think there's a substantial group of people that are, I think it's the greatest hobby in the world. There's a substantial people, and I'm betting that most of the people that have come in the last 6 months are going to stay. And if they don't, if there's a dip and they get out, then that could be another way of letting air out of the balloon. Again, the really serious collectors would like to have less competition and lower prices, except when they go to sell. So I think that's, I wish we could resolve that once and for all, Mike, but we will see. It can't keep going up 10% a month.
Yep.
And so, like I said, the scenarios of it going down 10% a month, a couple months, that would be a splash of cold water. And if people bail on that, they weren't the ones that were willing to persevere and saw the full benefits of enjoying a very wholesome hobby. So
thank you, Dr. Beckett, for coming on the show and having a conversation. I hope all of you out there enjoyed hearing a little bit more about Dr. Beckett's thoughts on some of the financial related topics in the hobby. Let me know what you think at waxpackhero@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMikeSummer, and you can leave me a review on your podcast app of choice. I would really appreciate hearing what you thought about the show and what you think about other potential topics. I'm always open to hearing what you would like to hear me talk about. Also, check out the Hobby Hotline live every Saturday morning and Monday night. It's a live call-in show where you can call in and chat about whatever hobby topics are on your mind. We'd love to hear from you there as well. That's all I've got for you today, so I'll catch you next time.